Welcome to Animalogy, a podcast about language, the animal-related words and expressions we use every day, and how they shape and reflect our relationship with animals. My name is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, and I'm your host. You can find me at ColleenPatrickGoudreau.com and this podcast at animalogypodcast.com. Of course, be sure to subscribe to Animalogy at iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and thank you for sharing and leaving ratings and reviews. Word of mouth really is the best way to share, and I also want to let you know that Animalogy now has its own Twitter account, so you can find Animalogy Podcast or Animalogy Pod over at Twitter. Today's episode is Toady, Lick My Boots and Curry My Favor. Dispersed between and among our longer episodes are shorter episodes that focus on one word that has animal prints all over it. And I encourage you to pay close attention to my words today, because at the end, I'm going to ask you to tell me how many animalogies, how many animal-related words you think I used throughout this episode, and then submit your answers at animalogypodcast.com. So pay close attention. Today's word print is toady. If you look at the frequency of usage of the word toady in the online version of the Oxford English Dictionary, you'd come away thinking very few people really use this word today. But a quick Google News search would suggest otherwise. In today's volatile and divisive political climate, it appears by the scores in headlines and in the bodies of stories in publications around the world, particularly those related to politics and politicians. A toady is a person who flatters and ingratiates himself or herself to another person, usually someone holding more power, in a servile way. A toady is a sycophant, a flatterer, especially someone who does distasteful or unprincipled things in order to gain favor. And it is an animalogy, as it relates to animals, particularly toads, if you haven't already surmised that. Although the word toady was used as far back as the 1600s to refer to someone who resembled a toad, to mean they're repulsive, that use of the word is rare today, and for the sake of toads, thank goodness. But that's not why we call a sycophant a toady today, not because they're repulsive. When you call someone a toady today, you're not saying they're repulsive. Thank goodness, because I wouldn't approve at all of insulting someone by calling them an animal. But indeed, in our current use of the word toady, toads were harmed in the making of the word. Let me explain. The first toadies were actually called toad eaters because they were toad eaters, sometimes literally, sometimes not so much. The word toady has its origins in the 17th century in the quacks and charlatans who claimed they could draw out poisons from poison victims. Toads were believed to be poisonous, and of course, some amphibians do produce toxins to defend themselves from predators. And so these quacks would have an assistant eat or pretend to eat a toad. The one eating the toad, the toady, as it were, would convulse dramatically, and the charlatans would then create a dramatic display of expelling the poison and saving their assistants' lives. The assistant eating the toad, a pretty unpleasant experience for the assistant, and might I add, for the toad, came to epitomize the kind of person who would do anything for a superior without question. And so toad eater, first documented in writing in 1626, became the name for a flattering, fawning hanger-on. By the mid-1700s, a toad eater came to mean a sycophant, a person who tries to gain advantage by flattering influential people or behaving in a servile manner. There was also a verb, toadeat, to toad eat, meaning to flatter, to fawn upon. By the early 1800s, it was shortened to toady, keeping its meaning of a sycophant or a flatterer intact. From there, we have toadyish as an adjective, toadyism as a noun, as well as to toady, which as a verb means to play the toady to flatter or attend to with servility from interested motives. I think my favorite, however, is the noun toadyship, the action or practice of a toady. Unfortunately, there are other animal-related terms to refer to someone who acts servile toward a superior for personal gain, such as jackal, spaniel, crawler, creeper, and parasite, though parasites can also be plants. If you want to keep toads and jackals and spaniels and all animals out of this rather unpleasant practice of kissing up to someone more powerful than you, there are plenty of non-animal synonyms, such as the ones we already said, like sycophant. There's yes man, hanger-on, minion, flunky, fawner, lackey, brown-noser, flatterer, panderer, lick-spittle, butt-kisser, or another word for butt, apple polisher, which is U.S. slang, groveler, and bootlicker. So those are some nouns. Related non-animal verbs would be to kowtow, to fawn, truckle, suck up, bow and scrape, lick someone's boots, kiss the feet of, lick someone's beep, blandish, court favor, and curry favor. So we have plenty of ways to talk about a person who flatters or defers to others for self-serving reasons, which is far, far uglier than any toad I've ever met. Now, aside from the ones I already said were animal-based, several words and expressions I mentioned in this short little episode are animalogies, words whose history and origins derive from non-human animals. Can you guess which ones? Submit your answers at animalogypodcast.com on the page for today's episode, and let's see how many you get right. Those who do, I'll be mentioning your name when I record the episode related to those words and expressions. And speaking of names, thank you to all who support Animalogy, including our newest platinum supporter, Morgan McGregor, and all of you supporting the research, time, resources, and love that go into the making of each Animalogy episode. You can drop your coins in the jar at patreon.com/Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. And that's our word print for the day. Thank you for subscribing and for sharing Animalogy. Until next time, for the animals, for the toads, this is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. Thanks for listening to Animalogy, changing the way we talk and think about animals.